Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be doing a conspiracy story. While I was doing research on a completely different story, I stumbled across another story that really piqued my interest. What you're about to hear are the words from Dave Chappelle's first cousin. This recording was vetted and confirmed to be real, and the source was a reliable source. They were able to look into this person and confirm that yes, this is actually, in fact, Dave Chappelle's cousin. But before we get into things, my fair use warning is above because I will be playing someone else's audio. Where is the real Dave Chappelle? It seems as if the world we live in today isn't the world of 20 years ago. Our world has been hijacked by a secret society called the Illuminati by controlling mass media, entertainment, Hollywood, the music industry, the military, the government, and even finance. They've managed to become 50 plus years more advanced technologically. I kind of butchered that word, but you know what I mean. Since the Illuminati's powers lies in the suppression of knowledge and by operating behind the scenes, those that begin to expose them become targets for assassination. Dave Chappelle was one of those exposers. He was drawn into their world by becoming famous in the entertainment industry. However, he refused to sell out to them and spoke out about this in interviews in some of his comedy sketches. Well, the original Dave Chappelle would do this. The impostor would never. Chappelle was known to be a proponent of conspiracy theories and secret societies being in control of the entertainment industry. However, the imposter Dave Chappelle no longer talks about these things. I want you to hear the first cousin's story. This story has been checked out by several notable media outlets, and it's been verified that this is definitely Dave Chappelle's first cousin. The voice has been distorted for her safety.
I would like to talk about someone who was very dear to me, and some of you know who he is. Some of you have laughed at his comedy. Some of you have gone to his shows and have fallen out of your seats or your chairs or what have you because of the comedy that he gave you, and that person is my cousin, David Chappelle. David Chappelle and I were first cousins. And I'm not going to continue saying David Chappelle. I'm going to use his first name because I've already introduced him and I as cousins, first cousins. And we are the Chappelles. Okay. David and I, we were very, very close. There were times when David and I would talk. I had his cell phone number and he had mine, and we would talk for hours on end. There was nothing that David would not or could not tell me, and vice versa with me to him. I mean, David had lots of Chappelle family members, and he had lots of cousins, but somehow or another, David and I, we became very close as family, cousin members. And, and we just felt comfortable around each other. David was my yin and I was his yang, or vice versa, as you want to put it, but we were very close. With that, when David left out of that office, David called me. When David called me and told me everything that they said to him in the executive office, David told me everything from A to Z. And what David told me, it caused me to get a headache. And if I had been in that room, and it would have scared the hell out of me, because it in fact scared the hell out of David Chappelle. And David told me, upon talking to me, he said, "Cuz, I got to go." And I said, "You got to go?" He said, "Yes, I got to get out of here." I said, "Well, David, out of here where?" He said, "I'm going to Africa." I said, "Well, David, you're going to Africa. He said, I got to get my head clear. I got these things. He said, I just have to have my own peace of mind. And I said, what about Elaine, David? He said, well, I'll deal with Elaine. I'll call Elaine later. He said, but right now I got to go. And I found out later the only person that David had told of going to Africa was me, his brother William, and I think there was a possibility that it was Neil Brennan. I said, David, you go and do what you have to do. And I said, but let me know when you get back in town. Some of you ask, why did he go to Africa? Because David was a practicing Muslim. And David went to Africa because he knew his fate was over there, his faith. And he knew that practicing Muslims was over there and they would guide him or steer him in the right direction. His sister was and is today a practicing Muslim. Now, I want to remind you that when David went to Africa, where he was going, no one knew him, because David told him on the telephone, he said, now, cuz where I'm going, he said, where I'm going, no one knows me. He said, I hope they don't, cuz. I hope they don't. He said, but I'm going there because I realize and I understand that there are Muslims over there. He said, but I don't know them and they don't know me. And so I said, well, David, go on and do what you have to do. I said, just let me know when you get back. So that's what David did. He went on, and while David was away, I received phone calls. Now, I don't know whether David's brother William received any phone calls, because David's brother William, him and I, we were not as close. But I know I received phone calls asking, have you seen David? Do you know where David is? And I knew where David was, but I could not tell anyone, because I told David during our conversation that I would never tell anyone unless he told me to tell them. And I knew that after what David had told me about the meeting with the executives, that I felt really good that David got the hell away. When David got ready to come back, David called me and said, cuz, I'm back in town. Well, he let his wife know, and everything was fine there. When he called me, he told me, he said, I'm out of the entertainment world. I don't want to do comedy on television anymore. He said, I'm finished with all of that. I'm finished. I said, Dave, are you sure? He said, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with being on television, doing comedy. He said, what I want to go back to is doing comedy at the little local comedy places. And I said, well, David, are you sure that's what you are? He said, yeah, because he said, I have enough money to take care of my family and my farm and my mother and people in my family. He said, but I just don't want to do any comedy on television. He said, I'm done. Anyway, while talking to David, he gave me a sense of hope. That David was going to be all right, because he was finished with the, this Chappelle show, the comedy show on television, and then he wasn't going to do any more appearance on any other show. And so it gave me a sense of relief for him. Okay, but they found out somehow that David was back in town, and he was doing, comedy at these little local comedy clubs and things like that. First, David went to the inside the actor's studio. He was asked to come and be on the show with the host there. And, David was fine. He went on the show, and the questions was asked to him, why did he go to Africa and what went down? And I remember that David told exactly, the same thing that I'm telling you now, and that how, this whole thing was kind of shaking, and he didn't want no parts of him. Went and he told about Martin Lawrence.
When Martin Lawrence was in that chair, we talked about Blue Streak.
I love that dude.
He played a role in your life, I believe. How do you feel about him as a person, as an artist?
Martin Lawrence is the guy that showed everybody you can make it from D.C. to Hollywood. And I had a personal stake in his success. Every time he did something, it made me feel inspired and really good. And he was always real nice to me. He'd sit me down, what's going on with you, baby boy? What? We'd talk about comedy, whatever. And, when we did Blue Streak, we were promoting it, and Martin had a stroke. He almost died. And then after that, I saw him, and I was like, oh my God, Martin, are you okay? And he said, I got the best sleep I ever got in my life. It's how tough he is. So let me ask you this. What is happening in Hollywood that a guy that tough will be on the street waving a gun, screaming, "They are trying to kill me"?
Yeah.
What's going on?
You know, Martin Lawrence, you know, they did the same thing to him too. But Martin Lawrence, and no one today, we have not seen Martin Lawrence. No one knows where Martin Lawrence is. Because you know why? Martin Lawrence is dead. I mean, body, soul, spirit, dead. If you ever see a Martin Lawrence come back on the scene, it's because that Martin Lawrence, before they killed him, they made a clone of Martin Lawrence, and they have that clone in waiting. Waiting for what? I don't know. And but no one has seen Martin Lawrence. No one knows anything about Martin Lawrence anymore. But if you ever, and I say to you all who all are listening, if you see Martin Lawrence, then you know that he's a clone. Just wanted to share that with you. But Dave Chappelle went on stage with, you know, and was in the audience. There was a group of young people there who were interested in becoming comedians or becoming actors or what have you. And Dave went there to, you know, to tell them about the business, about the Illuminati, because David felt that what they had said to him in the executive office, he wanted people to know what was going on, just as Martin Lawrence wanted people to know, just as Britney Spears wanted people to know. So that's what David did. David wanted people to know what they were doing to him and what they were all about. So this is what he said on the stage. So he told them,
Gotta sting a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I realized, oh my God, I'm one of those people. That's a small club, man. That's a weird place to be. Ain't really no going back. You can't get unfamous. You can get infamous.
Right.
But you can't get unfamous.
Right.
So I got scared. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I was scared to death. I don't know how this whole Dave Chappelle thing is gonna end, but I feel like I'm gonna be some kind of parable by either what you're supposed to do or what you're not supposed to. So I'm gonna be something. I'm either gonna be a legend or just that tragic story, but I'm going full throttle. I'm going all the way. I'm eager to find out how this will resolve itself.
okay, and then the next person, and when I talked to David, I said, David, you should not go there, you should not go there, you should not go there. But David, he was so afraid that David wanted to expose the inner dark circle. He wanted to expose them. And so the next person who invited David on their show was Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey, and I told Dave, I said, Dave, please don't go there. He said, no, cuz I'm going to be all right. He said, but I just want to let people, I want to talk, cuz I want to talk. So I said, okay. So David went on that show. And now, and if you notice or not, when David was on that show, on Oprah Winfrey's show, Oprah was trying to coach him along and saying to him, but you did, you know, you were stressful, weren't you? And David was saying, no, I mean, well, you know, anybody was under stress of what they said to me in that office, but she wanted David to admit things that were not true with David, that was not going on with David at that time.
I'm glad you're here. Everybody wants to know, why'd you walk away from $50 million?
Well, I wasn't walking away from the money.
Yeah.
I was walking away from the circumstances that were coming with the newfound plateau.
Yeah, okay.
When
you say you heard the stories, what do you mean? What stories?
I mean, you see before, look, Mariah Carey made a $100 million deal, and 3 months later, she's all of a sudden mysteriously crazy. Or Martin Lawrence punches through and he's waving a gun on the street screaming, they're trying to kill me.
Yeah. Yeah, we hear those stories.
And it always happens around the time of their career where it seems as though they're crossing over the next plateau.
Yeah. Would you say you lost your mind, sort of?
No.
No.
Not exactly.
Okay.
I wasn't crazy, but it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I felt like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress because, when you're a guy that generates money,
Yeah.
people have a vested interest in controlling.
Yeah. Were they trying to control you? Because, I read the Time magazine article and they were quoted as saying you had extreme creative control and that you really ran your own show.
Yeah, okay, but Oprah, I did 2 very successful seasons before that. So
Yeah.
why all of a sudden on the 3rd time am I in Africa by myself? Like,
Yeah.
what's happening? I don't want black people to be disappointed in me for putting that out there.
No, you didn't want to be disappointed in yourself.
You know what, Oprah? You're right.
Yeah. I still haven't gotten to why you just disappeared. So you had that moment, the guy's laughing too much. Was that the tipping point for you? Was that the straw?
That was the first tipping point.
Okay.
And then they put in the paper that I had pneumonia, or God knows what.
Mm-hmm.
It was walking pneumonia because I was walking all over the place. I was relaxing. And then after that, I was coming back to the show, and then they were like, well, Dave, you should just back up the pneumonia story. And I was like, that was your thing. I'm not backing up a pneumonia story. And then the next day it was in the paper that I had writer's block. Then I knew something was getting ready to get stressful because I hadn't even started writing. I was on the schedule to write. So I was like, what's going on? Are they going to...
So these are your people trying to
manipulate me. Sounds like somebody's trying to put young Dave in a compromising position. So it was getting ridiculous. And I knew I was going to leave. So I got ahead of schedule and I bounced. And I didn't tell anybody where I was going. The whole time, they're trying to convince me I'm insane. They were trying to get me to take psychotic medication. Yeah. Like I'm sitting around, I was stressed out, but the people that were telling me I was insane, I believe that they knew what was going on. So this was troublesome.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not taking this medicine, man, because I know these people be trying to control you or maybe discredit you. I was afraid,
But you were stressed out. That's why.
There's no question.
Yeah.
But it's very stressful for someone to constantly walk behind you and say, you're insane. Oh, hey, how about this? I showed up to work the first week, and where my office used to be, they built a wall there.
Why?
I didn't know why. But it came out later that they were like, well, they said you wanted it. I don't want to be walled up at the office.
I'm believing that they told David that they wanted him to see something, just like they did berniemac. Oh, yes, indeed. They took Bernie. Let me stop on David for a few minutes. But they showed berniemac the cloning lab, and they showed berniemac the cloning lab, and he went down and he saw how people were being cloned. And when berniemac came back and told Steve Harvey and D.L. Hughley and a few others, and that he saw the cloning lab and that something had to be done to stop that foolishness of what they were doing. Well, Steve Harvey and D.L. Hughley went back and told the top brass of the Illuminati, the dark circle, inner dark circle, and what they did, they killed him. Okay, so now let's go back to Dave Chappelle. I'm truly believing that they told David they had something they wanted him to see. And they took David to the underground cloning lab. And when they took David down there, I'm believing that before they took David down there, they promised David that they would go along with his deal, with David's deal, to get him to sign the contract. And I'm believing that David, thinking that he would get back on the Chappelle show, working with Comedy Central, that everything was going to be all right. And I'm believing that David signed that contract thinking that. And when he signed that contract, they wanted David to go and look at something else. It could have been maybe telling him that maybe it was a new studio or something of some kind or what have you. But they got David after signing the contract, and then once he signed the contract, they took him someplace else, and the place that they took him to was to the underground lab. And when they got him down there, they cloned David. And when they clone a person, and I want you to do your research, cloning today only takes a couple, maybe to several hours to be cloned. Well, this is what I strongly believe they did to David. They took him to this underground lab. And what they did is just smiling in his face and just going along with David so that David would not yield up or fight or this sort of thing. And they cloned him. And once they cloned David Chappelle, then they killed David Chappelle. Okay, and once they killed David Chappelle, that was it. And once they did this, then they had full control of this new Dave Chappelle. They had to clone him, and then once they cloned him, this is what I'm thinking too, that when they cloned him, then they got the clone to sign David's name for not only 50 million, but the 60 million as well. Well, let me say this. I had not heard from David when he was supposed to have met with the executives the second time, and Dave promised me and assured me he would call me to let me know the outcome. I have not heard from David since. When I turned my television on and I saw this man there on some kind of show, and he had one pants leg rolled all the way down and the other one rolled all the way up, and they said this was Dave Chappelle. I said, Dave, who? And I went to the television and I looked and I said, hell no, that ain't no Dave Chappelle or no Dave Chappelle. No, hell no. And so I got on the cell phone and I called my cousin David. And I called, the phone rang and it rang and it rang. I think it was maybe on the fourth or fifth ring that someone picked up the telephone and said, hello. I said, yeah, let me speak to David. And the person on the other end said, who are you? I said, I'm David Chappelle's cousin. And the phone clicked. They're going to use this clone David to make money off of. Oh, they're going to push this clone David. They're going to push him and push him. They're going to make so much money off of him until they can't make enough. And once they have made enough, then they're going to kill off the clone. But you see that if you listeners out there compare the original David to this new David, the original David Chappelle made people like this man. The original was funny. I mean, he was fun. He would tell jokes to me and I would just laugh like that. But now this new clone, he's not as funny as the old David is. There are things that the old David did, this new David doesn't even do. He doesn't. And if you listen, but you have to listen closely to this clone's voice. I'm telling you, listen very closely. This new clone does not, because I've picked it up and several other Chappelle family members have picked it up. This new clone does not have the original tone voice that David Chappelle had. You see, does not have it. And then this new clone has David Chappelle's brain, his mindset. Now, David Chappelle, and I do believe this with my heart and my soul, because as I stated before, David and I, we were very, very close. I knew every gesture, every word that David would say. Sometimes I would say something and David would finish it. David would say something and I would finish it. The many times that David would come to the different cities or states and do his comedy shows, even at the comedy clubs, I was there. I was there. The time he came to Washington, D.C., because I'm in New York. I live in New York. But the time he came to Washington, D.C., Dave called me and told me to come on down to the Warner Club. I was there. And if you get the video, if you get that video of David being at the Warner Club in D.C., David will tell you on that stage, I have family members in the audience. Well, you know who that family members was? It was me and my damn family. And after the show was over, I went behind the stage and I talked to my David, my cousin. You see what I'm saying? So I do believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that David, when they cloned David, David was fighting all the way. I mean, he was resisting, and they didn't inject him with anything. No, and if David signed anything, if David signed a second contract, it was because David was believing, because he said the only way I'll redo the Chappelle show is that things have to be the way I want them to be. The funds will have to go to the people. He said it on Oprah Winfrey, and he said it to me. And so they had David thinking and believing. I do believe that's the way it would be. And to get him down, and not get him down, but to take him to the underground cloning lab. And once they got him there and David saw what it was, David wanted to get the hell out of there, but they held him against his wishes. And when they held him against his wishes, that's when they put him in the cloning lab thing, or whatever they put him in, and that's when they cloned him. And once they got a replica of David Chappelle, then they killed the original David Chappelle. They killed his ass. But they knew they were not ready to send him back home to his family yet. They knew they had to do something with the family to make it believable that the one that they were sending back to them was the original. This is how these people work. I'm telling you, and I know what I'm talking about. And because why? Because it has to continue to be money coming in. Now, I talked to Charlie Murphy on the telephone too, not in length like I did with my cousin David, but there were times when I would talk to Charlie. Little cuz, how you doing? So, I'm fine, Charlie. How you doing? I'm okay. I'm with Dave. I said, yeah, I see that you're with Dave. So, and each time that I would talk with him, his voice was strong. His voice was strong. And, asked him how he was doing, this sort of thing. And like I said, I didn't talk to Charlie Murphy like I would with Dave. And there wasn't no constant talking to Charlie Murphy like I did with David Chappelle. But I do want to say this, is that this new Dave made Charlie Murphy a sacrifice. And the reason why is because that you have to do it in order to go higher. And this is what they, them, the dark inner circle, the Illuminati, had to have this new Dave Chappelle to do to go higher. So whether you believe this or not, everything that I've said to you is nothing but the truth. You have your own theories that you want to give, that you think that happened to David Chappelle, my cousin, or even with Charlie Murphy. You can think what you want to believe, but I'm telling you, listeners out there, it's sad to me and it breaks my heart to know that my cousin, a person that was in my life, his father and my father were brothers. And it hurts me to know that the child that my Uncle William gave birth to, well, his wife did, is no longer here with us anymore. And they are perpetrating this new clone. And I consider him as a demonic spirit. That's all he is. Anyway, he's demonic. He has no spirit. To portray himself as the original and ongoing David or Dave Chappelle. So I wanted to come forth to let you all know the truth.
I had to edit this down some, but I knew when I heard it, I had to bring it to you guys. I wanted you to hear firsthand from his own family member, someone that was extremely close to him. It seems like the deeper Dave got into the industry, he then began to see what was going on. Dave also spoke out against the elites and wanted nothing to do with them, but yet now he's throwing up Illuminati gang signs. Chappelle wanted to separate himself from all of that and just wanted to go back to his roots. He literally ran to Africa to get away, while over here in the U.S. they were beginning to run a smear campaign, calling him crazy and a drug user. When he came back, he still refused to work with them. So who is this imposter, and what have they done with the real David Chappelle? The real Dave Chappelle never allowed any power above him to dictate his content. He would never make disparaging remarks about women, nor would he mock the transgender community. Chappelle was a vibrant, happy, light-hearted man with infinite wisdom. This imposter, the new Dave, is filled with negativity, selfishness, not so great humor, and darkness. Listen, y'all, cloning isn't anything new. They've been doing this in the forefront since 1979, so just imagine what's done behind the scenes. I'm ending the story a little different today. While doing research on Dave, I ran across this song, and I don't even know why this came up in the algorithm because he's not hashtagged nowhere in this. But while looking for him, this is what came up, and I just wanted y'all to hear it. But before I close, I have more stories like this coming up and more crime stories. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Set it to all so you will be reminded anytime I premiere or go live. Be kind to one another, and you guys have a good night.
He's been clowned.
Too much shit going on in the world.
He's been clowned.
They cloning people.
He's
North
been
Korea
clowned.
about to blow us off the map.
He's been clowned.
Russia sneaking over here and shit.
He's been clowned.
Too much shit going on in the world.
He's been clowned.
They cloning people.
He's been clowned.
North Korea about to blow us off the
He's
map.
been clowned.
Black people still ain't equal.
He's been clowned.
They having Klan rallies, neo-Nazis.
He's been clowned.
The world ain't equal no more.
He's been clowned.
You can't go to the motherfucking
He's been
military.
clowned.
They've been cloning people.
He's been clowned.
Man, this shit getting scary.
He's
Hey,
been
I
clowned.
turned the shit on
He's
CNN.
been clowned.
North Korea got a missile.
He's been clowned.
People leaking information.
He's been clowned.
Somebody blow the whistle.
Love.
I'm watching Anderson Cooper.
Love.
And then I
Hey, it's me, unapologeticallymieka, thanks for tuning into true crime stories on real life issues and more. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe. Hey, it's me, unapologeticallymieka, thanks for tuning into true crime stories on real life issues and more. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe. It's me, unapologeticallymieka, it's me, unapologeticallymieka, it's me, unapologeticallymieka, thanks for tuning into true crime stories on real life issues and more. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe. Hey, it's me, unapologeticallymieka, thanks for tuning into true crime stories on real life issues and more. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe and subscribe.